space in your Dropbox, which at the time was like the main or one of the only places to share documents the way that we do now was through Dropbox. And it was really a great idea to get so many users sharing. And you ran out of space really quickly. So they did have a strategic plan on converting free platform users to paid platform users. So again, when you starting with the premium, you have to make sure you start with a plan at that point on how you're going to monetize or switch these users into paying customers. And Amazon is the classic hybrid. They have the marketplace and then AWS. So there's two very different revenue models. Some would argue there's two separate business models there. So when you talk about hybrid, it's usually completely different service that's combined into one. Next slide. So again, this is some terminology we need to know when we're talking about revenue models. That term, monthly recurring revenue, it's a question you're going to get asked whether you have a subscription model or not. So you need to know what your monthly recurring revenue is as a startup or any business, no matter what stage or industry you're in. When talking to investors or thinking about scaling or just to see how you're doing. You know, for startups coming out of this program, you want to have on this one, it doesn't talk ARR. So ARR is annual recurring revenue, MRR is monthly recurring revenue. So you want to get to a point to where you're at least, you know, I would say $100,000 in annual recurring revenue. Pretty early, that's a milestone you want to try to mark for. And it may seem like a large, like a long goalpost now. What I would say focusing on is getting that first customer. So far, what I found the challenge that a lot of startup founders have is really getting that very first 10 customers to monetize. The quicker that you can get people to pay for your service, the better off you are long term. So that's the easiest way to validate if what you're selling people are willing to pay for is by actually making them pay for it. Now that may not mean checks in the bank. That could be a binding sales contract. It could be a letter of intent. A letter of intent can include when you're going live with your platform, this person would pay a range of you know, $2 to $10 per head. So there's some creative ways to test that monetization. So, oh, am I going over?
Yes.
Okay, I can wrap it up here. And we can go on to the next mentor. Thank you, Addie, for helping with the presentation, since my computer wouldn't cooperate with it.
Yeah, that's teamwork. So thank you, Christina. Thanks a lot. You did a good foundation for for everybody to understand the different revenue models that they have. So with that, let's go with Saujanya. If you can start your presentation. Do I see you here?
Yeah, sure, Preeti. Let me just go ahead and start sharing my screen. Give me. I believe you are able to see my screen. Yeah. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for the opportunity to present about the revenue models and business models. So the first and foremost thing is when I think about the regular revenue models and business model, it will be almost what Christine told and would be here in the same thing. But the two additional points which I have are one thing with the service or product market, whichever the space you are in, be open to think of your own revenue model. Here, I know that few of them are in the service space and few of them are in the product space, and you can think of fitting yourself in any of these, as Christina already mentioned, like it could be a direct sale purchase or subscription sale purchase, like Adobe is doing, or freemium model like Dropbox. She just mentioned the same, right? So it could be the freemium model or tiered pricing, user-based pricing, commission-based, licensing approach, or advertising model. However, it could be. I would highly recommend you to be open for your own unique model to come up, which could create a revolution in the industry too, right? So test out the revenue model which you are thinking of, if it could be for free or if it could be with it getting an opportunity to test your revenue model is what something I would suggest as a mentor. Just do not go by the traditional approaches which are already there in the market, which if that fits your business and if that is working well for you, that's absolutely fine. But be open in coming up with a new revolutionary revenue model for your business, because we never know that that could be a fitting point for you, or that could create another revolution, like Airbnb made for commission based, or the licensing approach which Disney took, right? And advertising revenue, earlier we didn't had this digital advertising, and generating a revenue through the impressions through Google, how a Google and Meta are doing, right? That's a new model they have created. So for the new and latest idea you have, you could come up with a new revolutionary revenue model too. So be open for open to think about your own model, and with the current AI system which came up, there is an advantage and there is an equally disadvantage of using AI. So even when I am creating this AI, I have kept my paper and pen in front of me and thought of writing different revenues models, which would improve our ability to think on our own revenue model, instead of we going first to the chat gpt or perplexity and asking, okay, this is the model I am in, and can you suggest the revenue models? Please do not do that. That will eventually dilute your own idea to come up. And what happens is we tend to pick one of it from the what we have, what the chat gpt or perplexity is showing up. So I always recommend business owners to take a paper and pen and write your own revenue model. That could be another revolutionary model. That's one thing I would like to say. And the second thing I would like to say is, when you are going for the hybrid revenue streams, or you are creating or a marketplace, having three active revenue streams, this is quite possible with hybrid and marketplace business models. So minimum having your revenue getting generated through minimum of 3 ways is highly recommended, right? That's what that I strongly suggest to the business owners. And when you are entering into the market, have those 3 clear pictures in your mind. Okay, this is something which is going to generate my primary revenue, and this is something which is going to generate secondary revenue and third revenue. And so you never know which one would switch from the third to first one, right? So when you are testing out the market, complete the picture changes completely, right? The revenue model which you thought the third one, that shifts to the primary model, right? So while you are doing this product market fit, you will find amazing things, say amazing things like, okay, this is what I never thought that this revenue model would work for me, or there is an additional model which you think. And most of the times what happens is, when you talk to the customer more on what is their expectation too, sometimes you think that you are giving that side service for free, but they are willing to pay. Do not miss out on what the customer is thinking. So be open to hear their approach, their opinion on the pricing first before you share your pricing, or when you are in a product market fit stage. I'm saying, let's say they are saying, oh, okay, how much this would cost. When they ask that question, though you are offering that particular service for free, go ahead and pitch that, okay, this is what I'm going to charge for this service, and that might be your primary source of revenue too, right? So the whole point which I'm saying is, alongside the traditional business models which we have, these are all the business models which we have currently, be open to add in your own business model, because these are all born with a necessity and born out of innovation from some or the other person, right? This we have uh, go to 20 decades back, there was nothing called a freemium service, and now you see a lot of information, a lot of services are free. With the freemium service, they're upgrading themselves to the paid premium features, etc. So be open to add your own business model alongside what we have, and be open to add your own product based revenue model alongside what we have traditionally in the market. Same thing with the service. When you are in the service space, there is a lot of scope for having minimum three active revenue streams for your business. Especially with the booming up of marketplaces, you could have more than three revenue models as well. So be prepared and list all the possible revenue streams you could have for your business, irrespective whether it's product, service, or platform, and then focus on testing out each of it. You for each business owner, it works really differently, and the total available market for each service and product is different. So I would suggest, choose based on the value you are providing, consider your market, consider your competitors too, and be very flexible and open. This is going to earn you a lot of dollars. So, and test and adapt to those revenue models. You don't talk to the customer first, let the customer talk regarding, especially when you are talking about the revenue models. Yeah, this is all I have, apart from what other mentas are going to say. Thank you so much. And as Preeti mentioned, we'll have the questions later.
Thank you, Sujanya. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
It might sound repetitive, but believe it or not, the more you understand it, the more you hear it, it will be better for you to kind of formulate your own models.
Yeah.
So with that, we have Sanjay. Are you ready? We have Sanjay as a mentor, and he will be presenting tonight too.
All right. Can I share my slide? I should be allowed, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I can. All right. Good. Very good context by the two presenters. But before I get on, I want everybody to think and reflect and ask one question. Does your customer see the same value that you believe you deliver, right? That's the fundamental question. And my talk is mostly about the philosophy behind pricing, okay? That is value realization, which is at the core of, sorry, gotta go back. Okay, value realization is primarily at the core of the business model. It is the foundation for every business model. Where is the pricing strategy. So mine is more about philosophy and how you think about it. Why last week you went through customer understanding. So this is pricing and revenue model picks up on those things, right? So most of the business models business models are developing before even align with what you are delivering, how customers perceive it, and how they monetize it, right? So you must know your customers, right? We think about what is the value you are delivering. Many times you yourself do not know how much impact you are having, right? So then of the value that is being delivered, how much is customer perceived? And how much are they willing to share with the value that you are valued? That is at the core of the business model, right? You need to align the delivery, perception of the value, and how you monetize together. Whether with different revenue model, they're all just means to an end, but this is the core. As you first talk to customers to validate your pain points, once you have a solution, then you need to be going back to customers. So this is what I called kind of a 3-lens framework, right? First is what is the value delivered? The first lens. Second is customers' perceived value, and value you monetize. There is a whole pricing strategy behind this, which it's a longer conversation which I can go through. But let's say the real value delivered is $100. Now the customer perceives that you're delivering only $70 worth of value. It doesn't even know all the other values. This is where you need to understand and discover what are all the values you are delivering. That means, one, if the customer thinks that you're delivering $70, that is the parameter. It's not going to pass entire $70 value to you, because that's why they're buying the product. So maybe there are so many strategies as how can you come close to the $70? Just for the hypothetical case, simple, let's say if you split 50-50, that means customer is paying only $35. Or even take 40-60, maybe it comes to the 30 or 35. But what if customer understands that it is $100? Just take a simple case. If you take split 50-50, 70, you get 35. What if you may convince customer it's $100, then you're going to get $50. You have left $15 on the table, and look that into thousands of customers. So that is at the core of value realization. And the perceived value to value monetization, there are so many things that are taken away, right? Customer value, there's whole pricing strategy around that. Typically, if the customer thinks $70, you probably may end up getting like discount, competitor pressure, the tactics customers use to negotiate. You may end up with actually only $10. It's not going to be 50-50. So this is what you need to think about, Mal. So it all comes down to the funnel, right? The value, you need to understand what is the value delivered. You need to educate the customer and what is the value they are receiving. So this is where marketing comes into the picture. Pricing is not just a random effort that is done by the finance guys or the numbers. You really need to make sure that customers' value is delivered, and also the perceived value. When they continue to realize, then the renewals happen naturally. And that is what will help you in your growth, referral, and word of mouth, all of those things. So the value perceived is the most important lens. But there are different models. Christina mentioned through so many metrics. That is a very good setup. You have B2B, B2C, and B2B2C. But at the end of the day, it is the same challenge you need to think about. But definitely you need to look at pricing from different context. Definitely customer competitors come into the picture, but how can you continue to communicate the value that you are delivering? So it is not just finance, it's a holistic view that you need to take when you think about business models and revenue models. Okay. So the next thing when I look at, right, what happens typically, right? It's easy, right? You deliver generic value proposition. So your messaging and value proposition has to be clear, differentiated. This is where understanding the inner workings of the technology differentiation is very important. That's why many of your founders are engineers. That's a great value, but you really need to understand how much customers value for that. Cost or computer-based pricing is really the biggest challenge. So the easiest way is to look at my competitor is pricing at this level. I'm going to price it based on that. I'll give 10% discount. I'll win by price. And also revenue models, you don't need to discuss. I know you're into the third week. Here right now, you're just developing a hypothesis, but it is too premature to finalize a revenue model. But you can have a hunch and keep a couple of options to make sure that you close the value gap. So pricing, perceived value, and delivered value are the three things to keep in mind. Now, we talked about cost-based pricing and value-based pricing. McKinsey report has said that people who go with value-based pricing, their margins are much higher, 5 to 10%. You realize much more value, as we just saw. And value-based pricing is much easier to defend in negotiation. Cost-based pricing, typically, you look at Apple. Look at Apple and how many, I don't know how many of you remember a company called Motorola. In 2004, Motorola had a Razr. That was the most valued product. People loved it. There was no iPhone. But a CEO comes from a server company called Sun Microsystems, where I used to work, and he discounted and took a cost-based pricing. He just will discount it. And in consumer, from a B2B to B2C, they didn't value the price discount. They sold it in large number. They did not realize the value. So value-based pricing is very important. Don't go cost-based or cost plus. It's easier to define. And the second most important thing is you look at the value metric. It is more about the customer's experience and how you measure the impact. Christina covered a lot of the models, right? Use all of those things. There is no one particular model. I do respect Christina's comment on freemium, but that's then a strategic choice you make. You look at ChatGPT, right? It has a freemium model. It depends on the maturity of the product. If you go to Claude, they don't give you that many free versions. So freemium is still a good option to consider. It all depends on your solution and the technology evolution. So I'm not putting all the revenue models. Christina covered quite well, but the key two levers to consider is what is the value metric? How do customers judge the value, right? I'll give one example to disrupt. Yesterday I was talking to another startup. You have heard of ZoomInfo? They charge you at minimum of $2,500, and for large customers, they'll say $12,000 per month. You get up to 1,000 contacts per month. Use it or leave it, or some. This person is disrupting that space, trying to go with a different model. It is based on it giving an a la carte model. If you just want the LinkedIn profile, 2 cents. If you want to add email, another 2 cents. You want verified mobile number, another 2 cents. So he's trying to disrupt it from that angle. So there are so many strategic levers on how you deliver value. So that is the value metric he was looking at. So think about different value metrics and which revenue model will suit you. So my goal here is to kind of stir the pot and make you think. Business is simple, architecture is tough. But that's what my Bill Gates said 20 years ago in one of the interviews. That still resonates with me. So you guys are all strong technical founders, many of you, but you can think simply and connect with the customers, and then you'll come with the right pricing model. Now, it's simple. As you went with problem validation, even in case of pricing, you have to go back to customers, analyze and understand the value, really understand what are the values. I've seen so many products. It is not about how complicated the product is, how much is the value you are delivering. A simple workflow product, I forgot the name at Computer Associates, they were priced pretty high because you're managing the workflow for SAP. SAP, they're already paying millions of dollars. For this, the value of the simplifying the workflow was much higher, but the technology was primarily some of the scripts and stitching them together. It was not a complicated predictive analytics or other software, but it is not less about the complication of the technology, but it's more about the value. That's why value-based pricing is important. Understand the value, then validate the customer perception. You go to back and forth, and marketing has to be involved in this so that they can write the right messaging. It's not a standalone. And then select the model, and you have to iterate this. It's not a one time, you have to continuously monitor. And Christina and others covered all of those things. It is more than a revenue on MRR, right? How are you seeing, evaluating the value capture, value delivered, and the perception, net recurring revenue, retain, that talks about the churn of it. So you need to think about how many people are renewing, and what is the lifetime value of customer, and how long does it take to realize the value. Once you deploy a product, all of these things have to be considered for your long-term value. Again, value captured and value delivered is the other primary thing that you need to keep track of. Finally, I would say that you can come with business models and revenue models. At the end of the day, customers have to believe in the value you delivered, right? We can come up with a very detailed analysis of the pricing and the model, but business stands and falls based on how much customers perceive the value. They can easily replace a product that they have if they don't see the value. So that's primarily what I wanted to cover, to give you a sense of simplifying revenue. It is not complicated, but always be close to the customer and be passionate about the value you deliver. You can follow me on LinkedIn. I have my own business growth practice. I write a lot of articles on that. Connect on LinkedIn, check my website, and subscribe to my Substack. I've written quite a bit of articles. Every week I'll do 1 or 2. So I'll pause here and give it back to the presenter.
Thank you so much, Sanjay. That was really very helpful. I mean, I'm glad you added the value aspect to business and business model and revenue, because unless people see the value, they are not going to give the money, and that's where the revenue comes in. So I'm glad you added the value side of it. If we can, I think if you can stop sharing your screen, and then maybe.
I think Mercedes is up, it looks like.
Oh, is Mercedes there? I don't. Oh, there you are.
I'm happy.
Hiding. She's very shy.
Is that you, Avery?
Hey, Mercedes. Okay, so now we'll have Mercedes present, and she'll give it another perspective to the same topic.
Yeah, so I mean, I think you guys are all going the same journey, and there's a lot of things that even before you get to the business model, the question is how do you survive before receiving financing or generating revenues? And kind of like what you guys all tend to do is you start giving away employee equity, right? So there's some pros with this. There's 2 ways to do it. It's really important that you know the difference between the 2. So one is you can give stock away, and that is a complete transaction. So if an employee works for you for 1 day and you give them 10,000 shares of stock, they don't have to give it back to you. This is kind of an issue when you raise capital, and it also prevents you from retaining employees for a long time. The way that I prefer is the stock options plan. So this is also known as like the golden handcuffs. So usually we see 3 to 4 to 5 years in stock options plans. You can't do both of these, by the way. You have to choose one and like go that direction. So when you have a carrot out there for your employees, it's a way to attract, motivate, and retain those quality employees without huge high salaries. Cash goes into the company because they have to purchase the shares, and the vesting plans allow employees to drop off and other ones to take maybe some of those shares. And kind of a great example of like what that could look like is maybe, and I read about this pretty recently, there was someone who was at a startup. She was a secretary. She was involved in the stock options plan, and she actually had more stock than some of the other C-level executives, just based off of the fact that she had been there for such a long period of time. So again, like she was motivated to stay there, and shorter term people, when they come and go, they don't have a lot of employee equity, quite frankly. So the problem with stock options plans is they're a little bit more expensive to administer when you're dealing with like payroll consultants and things of that nature. There's a maximum number of shares that you have to create under the plan. That's also really important when you guys are doing your formations. So don't form your companies as of yet. I've already talked to some of you and you're doing it wrong. So we won't talk about that, but keep in mind, you can either give away stock or have a stock options plan. I prefer the stock options plan. So sometimes it's impossible to know where you're heading without reflecting where you came from. So some of this, really comes down to finances and kind of how you're spending your time. I if you guys are familiar with the idea of the fully loaded employee, you should really look at this and say, like, how much does the insurance, conference services, CRMs, the desk and cost per square foot, phone lines, whatever the case is, employee happiness, add it all up, and that's going to be the cost of the fully loaded employee. If you haven't started thinking about this, you will within your spreadsheets. Within the revenue section, there's a very thick spreadsheet that you guys should download, and it has lots of different revenue items and subtraction items that make or break your business. Ways to keep the fully loaded employee costs down is like hire parents, teachers, people off LinkedIn. Right now, particularly in California, there's so many people that are available for hire that you could probably grab some people that might be interested, and they'll work for a nominal amount. Interns can oftentimes be complex. They're oftentimes free labor, but sometimes you have to teach them too much and it's just not worth your time. And then there's also quite a few on-the-job training programs in various states that might be worth looking into. So financial waste is kind of like my pet peeve. So when I look at my calendar, I'm always adding up the cost of everybody's salary per hour. And so if I do an hour meeting with 5 employees, like that's basically 170 pounds, about $230, or a little less than that. And over a year, if I do that like once a week, that's going to cost nearly 9,000 pounds. That's a lot of money, particularly if that 1 hour isn't providing me enough value. So those of you who've worked in meeting cultures, start adding up like how much the cost of that meeting is. And you should ask yourself, is that meeting worth it? Was that meeting worth $300? Was it worth like $10,000? And these are the things that you need to keep in mind every day. It's going to make you a lot leaner. So when I have companies that are going to a Series A, I require them to do this. And the reason why is they become really lean and really focused on what matters very quickly. At the end of the day, like there's only 2 reasons that you're going to fail with your company other than product market fit, is you screw up revenue wise, you screw up legally. Those are generally the reasons that people fail. And sometimes they're tied hand in hand. So math matters. You need to like look at your revenue models. And as you're doing your spreadsheets, you should look at like the App Store, right? The App Store has a cost when you put an app on there. Cost is different from year 1 to year 2 to year 3, I believe. You need to look at corporate tax. What is the corporate tax right now? You need to look at employee taxes, sales taxes, free licenses to paid licenses. Like, why would that matter, right? So you think about all these free credits that we're getting from AWS, HubSpot. HubSpot is like the worst thing in the world. It is 90% off, I think, for the first like 2 years as a startup. And then they like rake you over the coals on year 3 at almost $1,000 to $1,500 a license. That is not a free license. That is like something that's going to cause a forklift upgrade, a lot of man hours, switching all of that content over, all your sales over. I would really suggest a different CRM. But I will tell you, like years ago, I had a company that had MySQL for free. They hit too many licenses, and then it became $1 million like line item in their budget. So keep that in mind. And when I was at Oracle, I literally would just go after all the fast growing companies and send them an audit letter, because it was easier to do that than it was actually to go meet with them to figure out if they had gone over their free license count. And you know what? When we did the audit, we had to do it. And guess what? They 100% of the time went over, and those audit fines are super expensive. Credit card charges, don't forget about things like that too. These small little numbers make big differences moving forward. So again, like I said, look at your productivity. If you're doing hour-long meetings, make them 50 minutes. If they're 30 minutes, make them 20 to 25. I recommend turning off your email several times a day. I template my emails, I reduce my Slack. I mean, there's a lot of things with AI that we are now doing that I really recommend you to lean into even more so. When you're going into your startup, go lean. Obviously, look at the contracts and payment terms. Never end up in a situation where you're getting money 90 days later. Figure out a way to get everything prepaid. When you're going into a new office, there's lots of places that you can go and get used furniture these days. You don't have to like go with these long leases anymore. I think one of the best wireless systems is Meraki. It's made by Cisco, but you know, when you actually have an office, you want to have it secure, but you also don't want a ton of labor piecemealing like a Juniper system plus a Cisco plus an Oracle. Like just go with like one product so you can have one employee that takes care of it. Something that made me actually really successful as a sales manager was paying my natural gas vehicle people and the electric car vehicle more per mile than a gas or a diesel car. And the reason why is at the time they could ride in the HOV lane for free. I think that still happens in places like Southern California or in places where they're like trying to really like create these incentives. But in LA, that meant that my salespeople could go to 5 clients a day versus 3 clients. And what happened at the end of the year is everyone who kept their BMW and their Mercedes, they got fired because they weren't hitting their sales numbers. So I always recommend expense budget guidelines. I will tell you that when I put limitations on alcohol, particularly only beer and wine with 2 drinks maximum, 100% of my sexual harassment cases went away. Nothing will cause you more headache than a sexual harassment situation, and particularly when you're dealing with like 20 of them at the exact same time. So again, you know, just get the right advice up front. Insurance is really important. So all of you really should look into startup errors and emissions insurance, also directors and officers insurance. It's super cheap. You know, if you run into a situation where you forgot something on a contract or you have someone sue you, just remember, like in America, like people can sue you for any reason. It doesn't even matter if it's like legit. They will make shit up. And so you want to have insurance to pay for that. So you don't have to worry about your family. You don't have to worry about yourself. You don't have to worry about your company. Again, like these things cost money. You know, it had 2 founders actually that created something that they thought that Gillette might end up suing them, because Gillette is really known for suing people around the world. And so they went and got a patent, like infringement type insurance policy. It was very pricey. It was 50 grand. I'll be the first person to admit it was not cheap, but it covered them for 5 million pounds. And as a result, Gillette ended up suing them. And Gillette was going to run them through the water. And then like somehow something came up where it was like, oh, we have this like, you know, insurance policy for, you know, this patent. And like literally Gillette just like went away. So sometimes big companies prey on startups for things that aren't necessarily legit, but they're just like trying to like capture the entire market. The other thing that's going to save you a lot of money is just hire a CFO out of the gate. And this can be someone who's only maybe works for your company 4 hours a month, but they are there to consult on accounting software, managing long-term debt, contracts, cash flow, also taxes, right? So taxes are really important. People who pay taxes usually don't do tax planning very well, particularly in this early area. If you're doing any research and development, you need to know how to structure that within your Excel spreadsheets. Also, when you decide to sell your company, you know, we have founders who have sold their companies within like 2 years, others like 15. I always recommend one check, one exit. My cousin actually sold his company for quite a bit. It was 25 million a couple of years ago. And the company that he went to go work for wanted him for 18 months, and they put everything kind of in an escrow. And over that 18-month period, he had to perform X percentage. Well, they baked the books and said he didn't perform, and so they weren't going to give him the 25 million. We ended up in court for 3.5 years trying to get that money. And it turned out, like, just as a weird situation, they made up the numbers. So, but if he had taken my original advice, we'd actually probably still be like good friends. We're not friends anymore because of this lawsuit. But he wouldn't have spent like 3.5 years going down this like horrible legal route, not being able to like really focus on anything else. And even if he had taken a lower amount, it would have been one check, one exit, it had been done. You know, the only people that win in lawsuits really are your lawyers. So like, that's why you don't want to pay them. Again, it's like a massive expense, a massive thing that detracts from revenue. So just don't do it. And I think that's about it. So obviously we will do questions after this.
Yeah, thank you, Mercedes. I mean, you know, it's always good to get some practical advice because that really, really helps. And having a good revenue model, and you know, basically, you know, what I think is, and this is what happened when I started. I really had no idea the difference between a revenue model and a business model. So basically, the business model tells you how the entire business basically works, and revenue model is how do you make the money, and that's and business model will be more on value creation kind of a thing. And as Sanjay said, and business model is basically revenue model is basically on pricing and payment and how do you monetize everything. And so these are the, you know, kind of, it's always good to know the difference, and it'll be important for you to understand it. And of course, what Mercedes, you know, she gave a whole lowdown on how do you, it's good to have a spreadsheet with all your honest revenue and your pricing and your costs and everything, expenditure, everything there, because it gives you a real story of your business, how, you know, what's working, what's not working, and it'll give you a heads up on where you should change things, and it'll give you a smarter call on your pricing. You know, that's very important, and spending and growth. And of course, if your revenue sheet is off, you might just end up scaling something that's actually losing money. So it's very, very important to have a reality check and a true picture for yourself to present. So with that, we will open the questions.
Well, no, I think Preeti, I'm going to present here.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Avery's
Okay.
great presentation.
Oh, Avery's presenting. Wow. We have, that's called really cherry on top of the icing on top of the cake.
Yeah, so background, I've been CEO of a couple companies. I've been on the board of about 4 other venture-backed companies, worked at IBM, McKinsey, a whole bunch of different places. But before I get into, I'm going to talk about B2B and about delivering customer value. But first thing is, until you get paid, you don't have a customer. So, you know, like, let's be super clear. People talk about customers, but until someone's handed you money, they're not really a customer. Now, to be fair, there are other ways people can reward you, but don't fool yourself. They got to deliver some value to you. And in the end, you get paid, you pay people with cash. Cash is king. And so people get excited about revenue, but it's not truly revenue, it's truly cash. And your cost of cash is extremely high in the beginning. So in a perfect world, like my favorite is Dell. Dell managed to go public without ever raising money because he got cash before he had to pay out. So he scaled, he got the negative DSO. He was getting paid before he had to pay his suppliers. And in the end, in terms of pricing, you're going to be thinking about either you're going to price on the basis of your cost, which is just like, you know, cost plus, just don't do it. But it is a way you can get priced. You can price on the basis of comparables, or really what you should be doing is on the basis of value. And value comes in terms of either helping your customer make more money, you help the customer save money, or you help the customer, or you decrease the customer's risk. For instance, insurance companies, all they are is about risk. All they are is owning and, you know, taking on risk. So I mentioned all of that as kind of a backdrop, and I'm going to quickly talk about B2B sales. So there's marketing, which is finding new people. We're not going to talk about that. There's qualification. Is this a person worth talking to? If they're not, don't talk to them. And then what are the sales essentials? What are the things that never change? What's the best approach in terms of your strategy? What's your process to do that? And then the wonders of customer delight and NPS. It's one of my favorite things. The best salesperson is a happy customer, by far, by far, by far, by far. You know, there's an old joke. How do you know a salesman is lying? Do you guys know this joke? Their lips are moving. So pretty much everyone you talk to will assume you're lying to them at some level. You might be lying to yourself as well, but they for sure that you're lying to them. So customers that love what you're doing, that see the impact of what you do, it's worth more than you can ever imagine. And then there's pricing. How much do you get paid? When do you get paid? What other considerations are there? And then how do you organize your sales? We're not going to talk about these pieces today, though, very quickly. This is a lightning round. My favorite, it's really, really old. It's called BANT. The other thing, you can end up talking to people and they love you. They think it's the coolest product, and you actually ask them for money and you're like, well, I have no budget. You're like, well, what was the point of all that? So first thing, do people actually have any money? Second, do they have the authority? Third, do they actually have a real reason? And then when do you need to do it? Like, you might have budget, authority, and need, but if the answer is, well, I won't have the budget until next June, well, okay, then so you need to nail all four of those. And if it's obvious there's a mismatch, just move on. And if there's continually a mismatch, you should ask yourself how valuable it is what you're doing. Sales essentials, honor commitments. One of my personal favorites is, keep track, confirm how much time you have with somebody. If you cannot honor your commitment for time, why would they possibly believe that you will honor commitment, any other commitment you make? It is incredibly easy to tell whether somebody will honor, like if you ask for an hour or a half hour, if you run over, they already know that you're lying to them. You lied to them about the meeting. What else can they trust you on? So please honor your commitments, starting with meeting length. They, in the end, don't care about your technology. If they cared about your technology, they'd have your job. They don't have your job. They just have problems. They're willing to give you money so they don't have to deal with those problems anymore. They make those problems into your problems. That's the whole idea. Sales is 57% listening. This actually was measured by Gong a couple of years ago. They analyzed a whole bunch of sales calls. The way it's often said is, God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use them in that proportion. There's a reason you got 2 ears. The best sellers are really curious, especially at your stage, man. You should try to understand everything. Like, what else have you considered? How big a deal is this? Who else is involved? Just questions after questions, and ask open-ended. And then imagine if people ask you for something like, I want to do a proof of concept, or I want this, get something from them. Like, give me a contingent contract, give me something. And then don't talk about your competitors. I mean, you can talk about it. You should, of course, tell the things about why you're better, but why complicate your life by bringing up competitors? What do we mean by open-ended questions versus closed-end? One question is, are you evaluating other people? Well, yes. Say yes, no. Well, the other thing is, tell me about the other people you're evaluating. Of course, they're evaluating somebody else. I mean, look, no matter what you're building, trust me, they aren't going to close up their business if you don't deliver. So therefore, they must have an alternative. One alternative is fair as nothing. It could be the other things we're evaluating is we may not buy anything this year. We might just live with it. I'll limp around. I won't go and get a cast on the foot. I'll limp for a year. Have you established evaluation criteria? And then what more interesting is ask the question, well, how did you arrive? What are your criteria and how do you arrive at them? What's the basis? And then what's the impact of this problem? How does it affect your business? And then instead ask more open-ended, like, tell me how this problem that you're dealing with impacts others. In other words, learn, empathy. There are 3 things in the end people want to know. They want to know you're competent. Can you actually do your job? Usually pretty easy to figure out. Second, do you actually understand the problem? Do you actually understand the customer? And then third, trickiest, can I trust you? Those are the three questions people are asking in increasing difficulty of proof. So an example of some of the questions at the business level: what's their career history? What's their role? How did they end up in this role? What's the problem? What's the value of solving the problem? What other solutions have they tried? It can't be that you were the first one. You might find out this is a really big problem. They've tried 2 other things. Neither of them worked. You're the last hope before they get fired. Well, that's important to know. What other solutions are they considering? How did they hear about you? Where did the criteria come from? How do they score? Have you actually bought something at this price? And by the way, I'm usually talking about things that are larger in price, but it could even be small things like, $5,000. But the point is, just try to understand everything you can, because this is how you start to segment your market. This is how you start to find out the real problem, because it's often that the real problem is different than the problem is that you first think. And then you cannot help somebody you do not understand. So seek first to understand and then to be understood. You can use lots of sales strategies. I'm not going to talk about any of this right now. Suffice to say, there's spin selling, Sandler, Challenger, conceptual, snap, provocation, which is good fun. The point is, there are a lot of different sales approaches. And the only thing that matters is you start to scale your company, just figure out which one's good for you, and then make sure people are all doing it, because then it's going to make your life. One of the big challenges in scaling a company is scaling sales. No one will do it as good as the founder. That's a given, but you can't make it more founders. So you have to find a way to take your knowledge and share it over. Solution selling. I'm a big fan of solution sales. Really understand the customer's problem, come at it from the value and the solution rather than the technology. Spin selling, you establish the facts. What are the gaps and challenges? Then what are the implications of those challenges? What does that mean for their business? And then finally, what's the need, the value, and the impact of what you're delivering? I'm going to skip this whole propagation versus alignment example because we don't have time, and then also the whole notion of value selling. By the way, these 4 descriptions are the exact same home, but they're 4 different markets, right? First one's very functional, just a straight description. Another one's about architecture. One's got ocean and talks about views, and the 4th talks about family. So the point is, you can have the same product, completely different positioning, depending on who you're targeting and why. I'll skip that. And then of course I love this a bit. This is the old saying that the only way to grow a business is to have customers that come back. If your customers aren't coming back, you got an issue with net revenue retention. You've got what's called a leaky bucket. Leaky buckets will kill you because it's so hard to acquire new customers. It's expensive. You want the customers that keep coming back, and even better, the people that start to tell others. How many of you have heard of something called Net Promoter, NPS? Okay, so at least some of you have. So think about that. That's a huge, and those of you who don't know NPS, just type Net Promoter and you'll find lots of stuff about it. But the key here is that the best salespeople in the world by far are customers, and they all know each other. I mean, we all think that you're like, that they're all smart. They all talk to each other. If you help one, by God, they will, share the news and send you on. So, this is, and the whole notion of NPS is a scale of 0 to 10, and then very easy to understand. This is one of my, I have this, I used to have these, in fact, I think I still have them. I call them my customer love bears. I love you and I love you more. That's the relationship you want with the relationship you want with your customers. So there we go. We talked about that. We skipped all the pricing and sales organization, but there we go. Now on to questions.
Thank you, Avery. That was so wonderful. I mean, I'm so glad. And, I appreciate you presenting at the last minute, but wonderful. That's where true knowledge comes, comes across, and I'm glad you shared it. So with that, we'll go to questions, and Christina, can you take that?
Absolutely. That's not big. Okay, one of the earlier questions was from Mercedes' presentation, I think. Actually a combination of this. It says when planning a different business model for future, so you're doing a pivot or planning on carrying out or adding a different business model, should I mention it to investors and how much detail should I provide?
Maybe Avery, you could answer that for us.
I was actually just responding to the comment that I love solution selling. I'm sorry, I was busy reading it.
Okay.
But what was the question again?
Okay, so when planning a different business model for the future, should I mention it to investors and how much detail should I provide?
So it depends, which is not the, the in a perfect world, okay, we're branching a little bit. So investors, it tends to be people are investing because either A, they know you already, in which case the answer is yes, because you should have a trusting relationship and you should get some insight, and they're aligned with you too, that you're in a category they already care about. Like there was a company, Makara, that I was part of that was doing platform as a service. It became Red Hat OpenShift after getting acquired by Red Hat. But one of the investors invested because he knew the CEO from when they went to school together. And the second person, Tim Gleary, invested because he wanted to invest in a platform as a service company. So if it's the second, where it's an investor that's already looking for your category, they probably think they probably have a notion of what the model should be. And then the third probably doesn't apply, which is you have such compelling financial results that, even though they don't know you and they don't like the category, it's so good why they've got to get in. By the way, the best is you can click all three of those. But I would probably, if you were doing co-creating and kind of you're so exploratory on a model with an investor, if they were spending time with you, it's probably because they know you. Or you're in a technology that's so unique that they want to somehow get invested and involved in it. So I don't think there's a generic answer. A lot depends on the relationship.
I think it also depends like where your business is at, right? So if you're
I'm thinking these guys, they're all really early, right?
Right. So if you're not thriving, then switching your business model, switching, a pivot, that's what you should do, right? PayPal didn't start out as the PayPal we know. Tesla, yes and no, started out as the car that we know. But it was a different
They're
model.
asking this question where they should talk to the investor about business model. And so.
Right. And so it depends. Yeah. Right. Like here's the thing, if you're failing, then you should pivot. And so you will change the direction of the business model and the product.
Okay, next question. How do you, was that complete? Sorry.
There's a question about how much will people pay, about, how pricing and all that. By definition, you will underprice your product for two reasons. One, if you overprice it, you won't get any sales, and so you'll be gone and we won't care about you. And second, and probably more importantly, for you, speed, time is of the essence. So if you get someone to close, 90 days faster and pay you because it's such a good deal, they just got the contract done, for you, that's worth it. Why not? You just get the customer. I'm just sorry. It was just, I saw that's an important point that came up as a question.
Okay, so we have another one. How do you charge now if you know your product will get better?
That's my point. Just charge,
yeah.
Get something, get them on board as a customer. There's a whole thing called commitment and consistency. Is once you get someone to do like a little thing, you get them to do bigger and bigger things. Mm-hmm. You've all experienced in your life. You've ended up at some point going, why am I still hanging out with this person? Or why am I still doing this? And you realize that you've just been incremented, right? And you can do the same thing. Get them on board. Once they've signed up with you, they want you to succeed, or they're going to look stupid.
I will add one point to that. See, when you're entrepreneurs, customers, when the initial customers, your product gets better because of their inputs. They are design partners. So you should be paying them for that input rather than them paying for you. But getting them to pay is a very good validation that your business is valued. So two comments here. Don't cry over 10 or 15 customers who get a very good deal. I'll give one example. Neuralink right now, I spoke to one of the customers of Neuralink to get feedback on a product I was building at Computer Associates. We had a startup. And I was getting feedback. They said, look, I've grandfathered a deal that I cannot afford right now. I'm getting a great deal because I was their first customer. Neuralink respected that, right? You guys have helped me build the product. So what if 20 customers get a great deal? You could be thankful, have that gratitude, and then you change the pricing, retain the happy customers, but newer customers, you can price it later. So that's one input. You have to think from that angle. So I'll tell you one key thing from sales every year. So sales has three parts. One is you need to be optimistic at entrepreneurs. The second mindset is gratitude for the customers you get and be helpful. And then respect. If some customers or investors don't come right now, they will turn around at a later time. This is a philosophy of entrepreneurs is have respect for those customers or investors don't invest in you or buy from you because they will come. I think this attitude was highlighted by one sales professional, so which I think is very apt. Sales guys are the most practical, spiritual, very good mindset. Engineers make it everything in black and white. So keep this in mind as you work on sales and grow your business.
Yeah.
I'll give you guys an example. I was selling software to actually it was to Electronic Arts. And I gave the CIO, it was going to be $300,000. And I said, I'll give you half price. He was my first customer for that architecture. I said, I'll give you half price if you give me 1 hour every other week to spend with an analyst, an investor, or another customer. And so I was basically charging him $6,000 for an hour of his time, right? And so you're thinking, wow, but from his standpoint, though, I was he was reporting to the CFO and wanted to leave EA. And I was introducing him to all these possible analysts, journalists. So I'm like his PR guy. And we're still friends to this day, 20 years later, right? So, you'd say it was a great deal from me. I have the CIO of Electronic Arts on speed dial. Here you go.
Yeah, these are all very practical advices. So do we have any other questions?
Yeah, we have one more that's very similar. Would you sacrifice revenue pricing gap to scale faster B2C subscription model? How do you make the call of revenue versus subscriber growth?
You guys know the rule of 40, right?
The rule of what?
The rule of 40, which is, margin plus growth rate, at least 40. Actually, it needs to be like 50 now. There's a whole bunch of analysis around this. If you look at, I think on, not Benchmark, Bessemer, BVP has a whole analysis about, the combination, how you trade off between growth and margin.
I think that's about it. We need to go to breakout rooms now, correct?
Yes. We have the breakout rooms, which
Yes.
I think
So today the breakout room is slightly unusual. We have, just to give a summary, with this 4 breakout room, one is California, the other is East Coast, the other is Central, based on time zone essentially. I'm sorry if someone is from West Coast and so they can join the California. And then the other one is pitching room, where we'll do the pitching session. Other are mostly socializing with your time zone and will move you around. Okay. And there is another room called rest. If you are not in, I'm not sure if anyone is not in US or this friendly time zone, join the the rest breakout room. Okay. So it is not assigned today. I've only assigned the mentors, and then all the founders will have to select the breakout.
So the BVP stuff is in chat for those of you that want to do some extra reading.
Yeah, nice. All right, I'm opening the breakout rooms now. Also, if you're confused, then feel free to speak up and I'll put you in the correct room.
I could use some help. I had to go on mobile.
Okay. Which room you want to join? Which time zone are you in?
Denver.
Denver Central, right? Okay, I'll move in Central.
Denver is Mountain Time.
Yes, Mountain Time goes in Central, I guess.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Roland?
Yeah, I'm in Asia.
You're in Asia? Okay, I'll put you in the rest the other time.
Okay.
Hi, Aditya, California, PT.
California, yeah, don't worry. I am.
Hey, Aditya, it's Michael here.
Okay.
I'm in Canada, my friend.
Which time zone is it?
Mountain.
Mountain,
Seems
okay.
Colorado.
So I'll put you in Central.
Thank you.
Can we change which one we're in?
I mean, we can change. So in the beginning, it'll be great if you join the room that you're supposed to be in, and then we'll move you around. Like we'll move you to a pitching room. Like everyone will get a chance to pitch for sure.
Okay. Yeah. How do we change rooms?
Just ask. You can, but if you're confused, then let me know and I'll put you in the right.
Yeah, I don't see it. I've seen it before where I can
Okay.
select
So
room.
which time zone are you in?
I'm West Coast,
West Coast. Okay,
California. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Hey,
Thanks.
Aditya, can you put me in West Coast too? Aman.
Okay.
Yeah, me too, West Coast.
Okay.
Phoenix, Arizona.
Yes.
MS.
Yeah. Who else is there?
This
Phoenix,
is Whitney.
Arizona.
Can you put me in the West Coast as well?
Whitney. Okay.
Thanks.
David Williams, Eastern.
David Williams. Okay.
Could you give me West Coast, please?
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Naomi Tremblay, East Coast, please.
East Coast. Okay.
Thanks.
Can you add Kingsley to West Coast?
1 second. Naomi East Coast. Okay. Then Kingsley, where?
West Coast.
Okay.
I'm in West Coast too. Phoenix, Arizona.
Okay. California has quite a few people. Okay. This is good. All right. Who else is missing? I mean, you can join by yourself also, but if you're not unable to find the way, I can put you there.
I cannot see it. I'm in California.
Nice.
Yeah, same.
Same here.
I'm not seeing the breakout option.
And Jake, California?
Yes.
And Shannon, California.
All right. Who else?
Yeah,
Denver.
Sonila, California.
JJ, where are you?
Denver.
Denver. Central. Okay. Central. Okay. Who else was there?
I'm in EST, Eastern Time.
Okay.
I'm in Eastern Time as well. Ryan Hall.
I'm also in Eastern, Matt Spalding.
Is Sonila, California.
Okay.
Dave Carey, California, West Coast.
Okay. Who else is there?
Carl Booker. I can go East Coast. I'm not West Coast.
Okay, I'll put you in East Coast. I'll put you in Central. Which time zone are you in? You're in Texas, right?
Central. Yeah, Central.
Central is fine. Okay. Who else is remaining?
Get over to Central time zone.
Central, Jonathan. Okay.
Please.
All right.
Massachusetts, East Coast.
Okay.
Me as well. Aryan.
Same. Roshan.
Ashan, East Coast?
Same as Aryan. Well, I'm in Toronto. EST.
Okay. East Coast is fine.
And West Coast.
West Coast 10. Okay.
Marianne, I'm in Denver. I guess I should go to Central.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Who else is remaining?
Alexander, rest.
Rest. Okay.
Massachusetts, East Coast.
Even Aryan, East Coast.
East Coast. Okay. Who else is there? Aryan, where?
East Coast.
Okay.
I'm Central Asia.
You're Central Asia? George?
Yeah.
You'll put in the rest. Awesome. All right. I guess I'll put everyone from the rest in the pitching room.